great column on quarterbacks that ran this morning. Blake Toppmeyer joining us of Gannett. He is the SEC columnist for Gannett, and really, it's what we would kind of expect. But you illustrated it in your column. It's pretty difficult to win without a go-to guy quarterback in the SEC.
Yeah, it is, and I was, that as you said, that's no profound observation. What was surprising is some of the numbers that really hammer that home. So I took it through a lens of first team all SEC quarterbacks. What does it mean to have the best quarterback in the conference? Obviously, we all know that's beneficial, right? But just how beneficial it is, oh man, it is crucial. So Jay Cutler was a first team all SEC quarterback for Vanderbilt in 2005. Vanderbilt had a losing record that season. That is the last time a team with the first team all SEC quarterback has had a losing record. In the 17 years since then, if you had a first team all SEC quarterback, you had at a minimum a winning record. 15 of those 17 years, you were ranked in the top 25 with a first team all SEC quarterback. 4 of those quarterbacks won national championships in the years they were first team all SEC. And the overall winning percentage during that 17-year span of teams having a first team all SEC quarterback, those teams won 85% of their games. So it's huge. It means more. We know this. It means more than having a first teamer at outside linebacker or whatever. But you really can't overstate it. If you got the best quarterback in the conference, not only are you well positioned to win a bunch of your games, you're positioned to be in the running for a national championship. We've seen that happen over the years in this conference. And so that's why, I think these debates, these preseason debates about who's the best quarterback in the SEC, it's a hardy debate this year. Is it KJ Jefferson? Is it Jaden Daniels? Will Rogers is a stat stuffer. Joe Milton looked awfully good in the Orange Bowl. Spencer Rattler had a good month in November. It's fun preseason debate, and maybe the lists don't matter. I'll hear that. However you and I rank them here in the month of April, maybe that doesn't matter, but the end result does matter. Whoever is the best quarterback in the SEC, that has a huge impact on carrying your team. We saw that just last year in the impact Hendon Hooker, first team all SEC, had on Tennessee.
Let me make sure I got this right, and Caleb's going to jump in here. So you based it off which ranking, pre or postseason, and did you go writers or coaches?
Postseason and writers plus coach. Actually, there's not been much dispute in the first teamers between writers and coaches. It's actually kind of weird. I thought there would be more dispute, but it seems to be in most of these years. It was pretty unanimous across the board, whether writers or coaches, who the best quarterback in the league was. But yes, I looked at postseason awards versus team performance. That's not a surprise, right? Your quarterback has a great season. Your team probably wins a lot of games. But again, just how 85%, you could be a stat stuffer quarterback and be in the conversation for first team all SEC honors. But if you're playing at that level, at a first team all conference level, your team's pretty dang good too. So, I don't know who the answer to the debate is this year. I'd lean toward KJ Jefferson, I think, from Arkansas. I think, like I said, there's 5 or 6 other guys that have a case for being in that debate. But whoever winds up being the best quarterback in the league this year is going to have a huge impact on their team.
Blake, it's interesting you brought up Jay Cutler, because that was 2005, and Tim Tebow obviously arrived at Florida in 2006. And there was Tim Tebow for 4 years, and then you had Auburn. Out of the goodness of his heart, Cam Newton just committed to Auburn, and there was no money involved whatsoever. But he went there for free and won a national championship. Would you say those two was really when it started to change, or was there a moment to you where it kind of flipped and the quarterback play became so much more important in the SEC?
I think that was probably I think you identified a good onset there. I think what has maybe changed even from then, though, as you think about Tim Tebow, we all know what made him such a special player was the dual threat capability that he had. And it was like having a fullback or a tight end in the backfield. And oh, by the way, he threw a pretty good deep ball too, right? He could sling it pretty well, particularly at this level. I think the passing games, though, continue to evolve, and the teams that we see win in this conference, slinging it across the yard, has changed even since the Tebow days. I mean, you look at what Joe Burrow did in 2019 with LSU, throwing for 5,600 yards and 60 touchdowns that year. I mean, that is even new for the SEC as compared to the Tebow and the Cam Newton days. And then you look at the way Alabama has evolved the last couple years, with their run of good quarterbacks with Tua and Mac Jones and Bryce Young, and the evolution of Alabama going from winning with bully ball to winning with much more of a passer friendly and a passer reliant offense, I would say. Now we've certainly gotten hints that Alabama is going to pivot back to sort of maybe the old school ways or something resembling that more closely. But during this run of quarterbacks, certainly their offense has evolved. And even though Tennessee's offense is very balanced, run and pass, certainly it's a forward thinking offense that we weren't really seeing much of in the SEC, 15, 17 years ago. And now we have Josh Heupel running that offense at Tennessee. We have Lane Kiffin running something very similar to that offense at Ole Miss. So I think even really in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a second round of evolution and importance on the quarterbacks. But I do think you're right with that ushering in of Tim Tebow and Cam Newton. The quarterbacks took on even more importance at that time. But now it's changed once again, I think, in this conference.
It's a great piece. Blake, keep up the awesome work. How do people follow you on the Twitter before Elon Musk destroys it?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at @BToppmeyer. You can find my work throughout the USA Today network. So if you're listening to this in Tennessee, I would recommend start local with knoxnews.com or over at thetennessean.com.
And then, so we may need your MySpace listing before long if Elon destroys Twitter.
I never had one of those, actually. I was like aloof to the whole social media thing. I grew up in a small town. I still had like dial-up internet access before I went to college, basically. I got to school and everybody had Facebook accounts. And I'm like, what is this Facebook thing? I was a little slow on the uptake there.
Gotcha. Well, I think you got it figured out now. Keep up the great work, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Blake Toppmeyer. Really good stuff if you haven't followed him or don't on Twitter.